Shalom everyone. So today I would like to present to you a video I've made about a little bit of science and the Bible. I was inspired to make this video after encountering a flat earther called Isaiah 40:22 on one of my shows a couple of weeks ago, whose explanation for how and why such a gigantic conspiracy of the world being round would be established is that he thought it was all just in order to attack the first parts of the Bible. Well, I realized that the demon of ignorance has its claws well and truly into the brains of many poor fellows, and I decided I would have to show how such a conspiracy fails, if you understand key parts of the Bible. Sadly, as is the case with many people I discover, it turned out that he wasn't actually very interested in anything except his own pagan worldview, and has a specific bit of, well, shall we say, animosity towards the Hebrew views. Rather, he's using what's in the Bible in order to fit his opinion, and he doesn't need to have any opinions from the people who actually wrote it. Well, this is what I find is usually the case. But nevertheless, you've got to give people the chance, haven't you? So although that was actually posted today, I made this video a few days ago, and it was specifically for this poor fellow and people like him that I made this video in the hopes that perhaps they wouldn't be so hate-filled towards a Judaic point of view. So, of course, we know that it's impossible to make a claim of letter for letter, dot for dot preservation in Hebrew texts. Even the meaning of the word Alma has changed over time. Alma being the word translated as virgin in the past, since in Hebrew culture, following the Torah, a young unmarried woman was always a virgin in the past, but now a young unmarried woman isn't, and hence the meanings of the words like Alma are changing. But taking that into account, we have to recognize as well the advantages and disadvantages of interpreters' or translators' preference, which I have taken advantage of with this video. Having said that, imagine if you were able to tell a modern scientific story to your children concerning the planet, and then they were able to tell their children, and their children told their children, and so on for 4,000 years before it was written down. Wouldn't it be a miracle if anything accurate remained at all as you described it by that time? So what kind of a miracle is it that the first few books of the Bible do reflect some of the science that has recently been established concerning the planet and the cosmos? So please watch this video and you'll find out more.
From the primordial cloud of gas and cosmic dust, gravity forged the stars. Gravity connects star systems together in vast galaxies and steers them on their journey through unbounded space. The relentless flow of time has driven the evolution of the universe and created extraordinary wonders. Some galaxies form so close together that they're locked in a gravitational embrace. What a magnificent sight it would be. As it evolves, the universe passes through distinct eras. Vast ages whose beginnings and endings are marked by unique milestones. The births and deaths of its wonders.
We are the product of a grand evolutionary sequence, cosmic evolution, about which we are only occasionally aware.
Gravity is the great creator, the constructor of worlds. But gravity is also the destroyer, because it's relentless. When a star around 15 times the mass of our Sun collapses, all the matter in its core is crushed into an infinite void of blackness known as a stellar mass black hole. The immense gravitational pull of these monsters can rip a star apart. They tear matter from its surface and drag it into orbit. This superheated matter spins around the mouth of the black hole, and great jets of radiation fire from the core. Although these jets can be seen across the cosmos, the core itself remains a mystery. Not even light can escape, so their interior is forever hidden from us. Throughout a star's life, there is a constant battle between energy pushing out and gravity pushing in. When it runs out of fuel, the star collapses and then explodes with the brightness of 1 billion suns. As the star is torn apart, it will fire out into space all the elements that it created in its life and death. These are new stars forming from the elements blown out by supernova explosions. New stars being born from the remains of dead ones. Clouds of hydrogen collapse further and further under the force of gravity, and the life cycle of a new star has begun.
More than 4.5 billion years ago, the Milky Way galaxy collided with a nearby dwarf galaxy. This encounter hastened the formation of stars. Our solar system is a part of the Milky Way galaxy. Within the solar system, material circulation had been progressing. The water component from the outer region evaporated to make materials dry. Through this process, particles were zonally distributed depending on their water content. The bipolar flow stopped, and with it material circulation. Some regions around the Sun with high particle density appeared. Within these regions, collisions frequently occurred. Small particles gradually grew to become planetesimals. Planetesimals continued colliding with smaller particles and other planetesimals, eventually growing to planets such as the Earth. A number of planets were moving in the same orbit. The early Earth collided with a smaller, Mars-sized planet. Debris from this impact eventually came to form our Moon. The Earth-Moon system, as we know it today, was in place. Countless planetesimals and icy planets bombarded the early dry Earth. Due to the bombarding water-enriched planetesimals, the Earth became enveloped by an ocean atmosphere system. Water vapor in the atmosphere produced rain, forming an ocean. The atmospheric pressure gradually decreased. The carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere transitioned into a CO2 ocean covering the water ocean. Carbon dioxide also combined with rock components and was transported to the bottom of the ocean through weathering and erosion. At this time, the ocean was still toxic with a high salinity and an overabundance of metals. It was too toxic to support life. Upwelling mantle displaced the oceanic plates above. Uplift of the plate by mantle convection caused horizontal slippage due to the weight of the plate. This is plate tectonics in action. The oceanic plate subducted under the lighter continental plate. Weathered sediments neutralized the ultra-acidic ocean. Heavy metals settled out and became fixed as deposits at the mid-ocean ridge. These deposits were transported through plate tectonics into the deep mantle. Gradually, the ocean became a habitable environment. By 4.2 billion years ago, a liquid core formed in the center of the Earth. Convection within the liquid core created a strong magnetic field surrounding the Earth. This geomagnetic field shields the Earth's surface from cosmic rays. The Earth's surface was nearing readiness for life. The early Earth, when the atmosphere prevented sunlight from reaching the surface. Primitive life was about to emerge underground, in the cave of a geyser. Uranium ore emitted large amounts of radiation, creating a diverse range of materials, and eventually producing the early building blocks of life. Water boiled and rose up to the surface, and the surface water flowed back down into the natural nuclear reactor. The temperature of the geyser water remained below 100 degrees, protecting the newly formed biomolecules. The underground environment was reductive, while the surface environment oxidizing. These conditions were necessary to synthesize biomolecules. In the Earth's Hadean eon, tidal forces were much more pronounced than they are today. Even lakes had significant ebb and flow of water, creating wet and dry cycles. These wet and dry cycles were one of the most crucial factors in producing the building blocks of life. Fatty acids came together, encasing the proto-life molecules. Polymerization progressed under the wet and dry cycles. Eventually, protein-like basic materials that could act as catalysts were produced. These molecules circulated between the geyser cave and the surface environment. The interactions of these materials led to more complex biomolecules. Proto-RNA combined with enzyme-like basic materials and evolved into ribozymes, which had the ability to replicate themselves. This laid the groundwork for life to reproduce. Finally, these molecules were enclosed within lipid membranes, forming primitive protocellular life. This was the beginning of life.
Life had begun. The latest theory is that chemicals spewing from underwater volcanic vents solidified and created the conditions needed for the first cells to form. For some 3 billion years, simple microscopic organisms were the most advanced form of life on the planet.
The supply of energy and nutrients through material circulation is necessary for life. The essential mechanism to maintain life is an endless flow of electrons. The first proto-life couldn't survive very far from the nuclear geyser due to insufficient energy. Mutations, however, allowed life to evolve. The more resilient life forms were able to adapt and survive in harsh environments. This second stage of proto-life evolved to make use of the sunlight available on the Earth's surface. They developed a metabolism that converted light energy into electrochemical energy. Moreover, they used sugars to store energy for the sunless night hours. The source of energy for life on Earth shifted from nuclear geysers to the sun. Oxygen, when unbound to any other material, can be toxic to life because oxygen destroys the reductive life body. Therefore, the first photosynthetic organisms would have been anaerobic microbes, which produced no oxygen. Life, however, adapted, taking advantage of oxygen. As a valuable source of additional energy. This development resulted in the appearance of cyanobacteria.
Cyanobacteria and other oxygen-producing microbes began to bloom. These flourished in colonies of plant-like microbes that pumped out enormous volumes of oxygen.
Cyanobacteria produced oxygen, which crystallized into felsic iron-bearing oxide, reducing the iron content of the ocean. Still, the ocean was 5 times as saline as it is today. The oxygen produced by the cyanobacteria gradually altered the Earth's atmosphere.
And it was this increase in oxygen that was the key to the rise of the animal kingdom.
Organisms started using oxygen to respire, yielding a lot more energy, which allowed the development of more complex life.
Just before complex life appeared, the world was in the grip of the biggest ice age in its entire history.
There was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. But the dragon fought back, and his angels fought with him. But they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Based on detailed analysis of star distances, star motions, and neutral hydrogen radiation from spiral arms, we believe that the galaxy is a relatively flat, rotating 100,000 light-year wide disk of some 600 billions of stars. This image, out of the Spitzer Science Center and the University of Wisconsin, represents an attempt to synthesize over a half-century of work on the galactic disk's structure, based on data obtained from the literature at radio, infrared, and visible light wavelengths. Whenever you see a picture of the whole Milky Way, remember that it is an artist's drawing. The size of the galaxy is so large that the distance one must go to see it all is way too far. Here's what I mean. If we assume that our field of view is 140 degrees, we can use trigonometry to find the distance to a point where such a picture could be taken. That point is approximately 186,500 trillion miles from the Sun's current location. Voyager 1 left on its journey in 1975 and is traveling at 38,185 miles per hour. It has already gone 12 billion miles. If we aim it at the photographic point at its current velocity, Voyager won't reach this point for another 558 million years. If some future generation were to ever take such a picture, they would see our entire solar system as little more than a single pixel.
Okay. Let me show you why you guys are here. These are images of archaeological digs from all over the earth. These are ancient civilizations. They were separated by centuries. They shared no contact with one another, and yet the same pictogram showing men worshipping giant beings pointing to the stars was discovered at every last one of them. And the only galactic system that matched was so far from Earth that there's no way that these primitive, ancient civilizations could have possibly known about it.
Eden. Call it what you will. The Klingons call it Kuitu. The Romulans, it's Vortavor. The Andorian word is unpronounceable. Still, every culture in existence shares this common dream of a place from which creation sprang. For us, that place will soon be reality. Brave crew of the Starship Enterprise, consider the questions of existence. These are the questions which man has asked ever since he first gazed at the stars and dreamed. But above all else, they believed in a place in which these questions of existence would be answered. Modern dogma tells us this place is a myth, a fantasy, concocted by pagans. It is no fantasy. It exists. My brothers, we have been chosen to undertake the greatest adventure of all time. The discovery of Shakari.
Eden. Is it possible?
Is what possible?
That he's found Shakari.
Which lies beyond the Great Barrier.
At the center of the galaxy.
Center of the galaxy.
Where Shakari is fabled to exist.
The center of the galaxy can't be reached. No ship has ever gone into the Great Barrier. No probe has ever returned.
Cybok possessed the keenest intellect I've ever known.
Is it possible?
Like nothing I have ever seen.
Shakari. Que? E tu?
Por favor.
The galactic center itself, with the supermassive black hole that we discussed earlier, is shaped like a bar. Although most parts of the Milky Way galaxy are relatively uncrowded, roughly 10 million stars are known to orbit within just a single light year of the galactic center in a region known as the central bulge. Recent surveys discovered the two 3 kiloparsec arms, named for their length. They are now generally thought to be associated with gas flow roughly parallel to the central bar. These are primarily filled with gas and pockets of star-forming activity. Using infrared images from Spitzer, scientists have discovered that the Milky Way's elegant spiral structure is dominated by just 2 arms wrapping off the ends of the central bar. One is named Scutum Centaurus, and the other is named Perseus. Each of these major arms consists of billions of young and old stars. In Perseus, we see the Rosetta, Heart and Soul nebulas, as well as the Crab supernova, to name just a few. Thinner arms spiral out between the 2 giant arms. These are called Sagittarius and the Norma outer arm. These are primarily filled with gas and pockets of star-forming activity. In Sagittarius, we see the Jewel Box star cluster and the Trifid, Omega, Lagoon, Eagle, and Cat's Paw nebulas, among others. There is also a spur off the Sagittarius arm called the Orion Spur. It's 3,500 light-years across, 2,000 light-years deep, and approximately 10,000 light-years long. We are located on the inner edge, halfway along this spur, around 26,000 light-years from the galactic center. When we fill the space between the arms, all the local neighborhood stars would fit into the red circle I use to locate our solar system. That would be stars like Wolf 395, Altair, Vega, Polaris, Capella, Aldebaran, the Pleiades, and Betelgeuse. They are all with us in the Orion Spur, as is the Orion, Horsehead, Cone, Witch's Head, Veil, and many other nebula.
The oldest stories ever told are written in the stars.
A collision between the Milky Way and a nearby dwarf galaxy produced countless glowing stars. Within a few thousand years, some of these stars ended in supernova explosions. A myriad of cosmic rays from the supernova deteriorated the sun's heliosphere and bombarded the Earth. These cosmic rays helped generate cloud condensation nuclei, which produced more and more clouds until the Earth was completely blanketed with them. The thick cloud cover prevented sunlight from reaching the surface of the Earth.
And then suddenly, advanced organisms appeared.
The prokaryotes survived the snowball Earth, evolving into more complex life, such as endosymbiotic systems living together inside cells. They formed mitochondria and chloroplasts, which allowed them to get more energy from oxygen. A single prokaryote body could contain thousands of mitochondria. A nuclear membrane formed, protecting DNA from the oxygen-dense ocean water. DNA strands grew longer, retaining ever more genetic information. Life evolved into more diverse and complex organisms. At long last, the eukaryotes appeared. The eukaryotes grew 1,000,000 times larger than the prokaryotes. In theory, everything inevitably falls into disorder. And yet, life is orderly and increasingly complex. Life seems to continue evolving, undeterred by universal entropy. Extreme climate changes continued, putting life on a path to new evolutional stages for survival. Life evolved with prokaryotes and eukaryotes living together as ever larger symbiotic organisms, compensating for each other's shortcomings and thriving as a whole. This greatly expanded the possibilities for forms of life. Life forms grew to 1,000,000 times the size of eukaryotes and 1,000,000,000,000 times the size of prokaryotes. The appearance of multicellular life was a critical leap for evolution. The supply of nutrients from the land was ever increasing, as was atmospheric oxygen. The amount of ferrous iron in the oceans increased. The ferrous iron oxidized, once again creating large bands of iron. Phosphorus and calcium levels in the ocean increased. Life evolved to use these elements, becoming animals with bones and shells. For example, the calcium helped protect Microdictyon from other animals. Their bodies used calcium to form a covering of hard scales. Life evolves to survive, making use of the elements in its environment. And the Earth's environment alters the shapes of life. The Earth entered another period of climactic instability. the Earth alternated between periods of extreme heat and extreme cold for tens of millions of years. These severe changes killed off the Ediacaran fauna. Nevertheless, new species were about to appear. Radiation from inside the Earth plays a significant role in the evolution of life. A continental rift is a place where a continent breaks open to expose erupting magma and radioactive elements. Radiation hastens the creation of new species and new branches in the tree of life. This is stem evolution, creating new species at continental rifts. Life evolved separately on each small continent. When small continents recombined, their life forms crossbred. Different crossbreedings created new forms of life. Variation thrived. This is crown evolution. Continental collisions created more diverse surface environments. Bays and gulfs on large continents were especially well supplied with nutrients from upstream. Making use of these nutrients, Cambrian-era life forms diversified much more quickly. The Cambrian explosion created some 35 new phyla. These phyla became the foundation for the types of plants and animals we see today. There are three main ways that life evolved. Mass extinctions that eradicated many species. Stem evolution that hastened genetic mutations when continents broke apart. And crown evolution that hastened biodiversification when continents collided. So, the evolution of life is inextricably linked to environmental changes due to universal factors and continents assembling together and breaking apart. Algae was the first life form to transition out of the water onto the challenging land environment. This is why algae evolved before animals did. When insects appeared, they co-evolved together with plants. Appearing during the Cambrian explosion, fish were the first of the vertebrates, animals with backbones. Fish are the oldest vertebrate ancestors of us humans. As fish continued to evolve, Ichthyostega appeared, the ancestor of amphibians. Next, vertebrates equipped with lungs appeared and made their way onto land. The tree of life evolved, branching from fish to amphibians to reptiles and then dinosaurs and mammals, and eventually to humans. This guy hasn't found out about all that just yet. on the supercontinent Pangaea. Mammals and reptiles appeared and started evolving under a warm climate. While reptiles diversified into many varieties, mammals remained nocturnal, rat-sized animals. The mammals were in the shadows. With the appearance of dinosaurs, reptiles entered a golden age. Dinosaurs prevailed against many other animal species and won the struggle for survival. High radiation magma is produced when a continent is split apart, and this is where stem evolution occurs due to induced mutation. Dinosaurs were at the pinnacle of their ecosystems. The pieces of northern Pangaea that had split later rejoined. This caused crown evolution. Amalgamation of continents brings the hybridization of life, and new species spread out to other continents. Dinosaurs flourished all over the world. In the plant world, angiosperms with advanced reproductive capacities appeared. Angiosperms utilize animals to help with pollination and thus flourished. On the other hand, the habitat of gymnosperms was reduced. Primates, the ancestors of humans, appeared at the rift of the Gondwana supercontinent. Via stem evolution, new species appeared among the rodents, such as rats. With time, Gondwana split into South America and Africa. After South America was isolated, the primates there evolved into the New World monkeys. On the African continent, the primates evolved into the Old World monkeys. After the Indian subcontinent split off from Antarctica, primates on this continent evolved into the lorises. Primates evolved independently on each continent. And in this way, many species of primate appeared. Along the African Rift Valley, explosive volcanic activity continued, and peculiar magma containing abundant radioactive elements erupted. Old World monkeys, a new clade of primates, appeared there. They are thought to be our remote ancestors. A large-scale Pacific superplume pushed the Pacific plate up and raised the sea level. Lowlands fell below sea level, and the total land area decreased. Rising sea levels segmented the continent, providing isolated environments for individualized morphological evolution. A universe-scale event had changed Earth's surface environment. The solar system collided with a dark nebula. The Earth was entirely covered by clouds. Global cooling progressed, catastrophically damaging ecosystems. Finally, a meteorite 10 kilometers across fell on the Yucatan Peninsula. This event was the final trigger to cause the mass extinction of dinosaurs. The fate of the Earth's life is deeply connected to the events in the universe. Universe-scale events can cause global cooling and mass extinctions. Moreover, galactic cosmic rays directly affect the DNA that carries the blueprints of life. Cosmic rays cause mutations which promote evolution. All aspects of life on the Earth are thus influenced by universe-scale events. Finally, the dinosaurs that had flourished went extinct.
Here we see the Sun's orbit around the galactic center. Our orbital speed is approximately 138 miles per second. It takes the solar system about 225 million years to complete one orbit. The last time we were in the same place in our orbit, dinosaurs were just starting to appear on the Earth. We have traveled 1/1000th of a revolution since the origin of humans.
About 4.5 billion years have passed since the birth of the Earth. Large fluctuations in terrestrial environments have occurred repeatedly. A never-ending cycle of life and death. Finally, human beings appeared. This was the onset of the Humanozoic Era. Humans have a unique set of genetic regions called Human Accelerated Regions, or HARs, and these regions differentiate humans from other animals. Humans developed enlarged brains that enabled them to gain language capabilities. They also gained the abilities to think, to be conscious, to remember, and to imagine. The brain volume of human beings has discontinuously increased in 3 stages. The growth of brain volume seems to be synchronized with large-scale volcanic eruptions. This indicates that the increase in brain volume is caused by stem evolution, driven by high R magma. About 1,200,000 years ago, humans started moving out of the African continent. The last common female ancestor who left the African continent 200,000 years ago is called mitochondrial Eve. Descendants of mitochondrial Eve entered North America and Central America 15,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, further descendants reached the southern tip of South America. They had spread all over the world. Since then, an epical advance of human civilization has taken place.
So since we've just heard about mitochondrial Eve, I thought it would be also important to mention Y chromosomal Adam. So these, this little blue dot here, if you can see my mouse, is Y chromosomal Adam. Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam reflect the sort of genetic mutations which are traceable in a family tree. On the Y chromosome, you can trace the family tree of father to son, father to son, father to son. And on the mitochondrial DNA, you can trace the maternal family tree of mother-daughter or mother-children, mother-daughter, 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 as it goes on for generations. And so you can identify a sort of Y chromosomal tribe that you belong to, which is indisputable in its relationship to other male tribes. And also you can find maternal tribes that you belong to from your mitochondrial DNA too. So they both build a family tree. And this is the family tree for the Y chromosomal Adam. So this mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam would correspond to what we call the children of Hadean, which I've been translating as the clay in this video, since it comes from Adama, which is the ground or dirt, and it's made of afar, which is dust or dirt. So, so the Ha'adam, which comes from the afar of the Adama, is kind of a red clay in Hebrew, but in other Semitic languages it's just a clay, and it also means man as well. So mankind or humans has a double meaning. One is mankind or humans, the other one is this kind of red clay, which I've been translating it that way throughout the Bible here. So this red clay, or this clay, was the clay of life, if you like, and you saw in the video how it came to be a living substance because of its complete saturation with living organisms. And then when Satan was cast out of heaven, this clay was taken to tend the Garden of Eden, and then it was ensnared and trapped and taken back down to earth, at which point God clothed it in skin. And this seems to have something to do with the mutation which caused human primates to have these human accelerated regions which differentiate us from all other animals on the planet. So some kind of microbial organism from outer space perhaps is the source of this, a virus, something from a theory called Panspermia, where there's the universe is full of these sort of proto-life, sort of viral type like creatures. And so the idea is that although that may have originated on this planet, some meteor strike or asteroid could have smashed into the Earth and scattered it up into space, and where it evolved for billions of years before returning back to this planet and infecting primates in the Rift Valley, who evolved into the ancestors of modern humans, and that infection caused these human accelerated regions. So in this way, Hadean, this living clay, came back to the earth. It's very interesting how similar this is to Prometheus' story with this kind of living goo. Anyway, so it comes back to the earth and infects these primates who become the ancestors of modern humans, and we can trace the migration of those paternal line and maternal line. That's mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam, they call him, but it actually should be Hadean if we use a biblical term, across the planet. So here we have this this diagram of the Y chromosomal haplogroups, and in the middle of this we've got this CR. I've written the word Lamech there, so let's have a little zoom in on here. So this blue dot represents Y chromosomal Hadean, the first primate to be infected with this DNA. Well, not necessarily the first, but we could say the most ancient one that we can get attestation from the evidence of tested humans so far. The Y chromosomal DNA of that person, he lived here, which is in the right location for the infection to have occurred. This video, which I was playing, suggests that the mutation came from some kind of special magma or lava, which somehow only affected primates. But anyway, the Panspermia idea includes which is a theory of the dispersal of microorganisms throughout the galaxy, suggests that this could have been a viral infection which caused the human accelerated regions to develop. So he lived here in this blue dot, and he had a child. He had several children. You've got this A down here, B goes up here, and B also goes down to South Africa. But one of his children had 3 sons, and that's labeled here CR. This is a fact. This is a scientific fact. CR had 3 sons, or essentially 3 lineages have survived. One of them was called, we labeled that lineage E. The other one we label it F, and the other one we label it C. From E also branches off, this orange branch comes across here, which is D, which comes about the same time. So this ED, F, and C are the 3 children, if you like, the 3 sons of Lamech, which corresponds to that biblical phrase. One of them, that Lamech had 3 sons. One was called Tubal-Cain, the other one is called Jabal, and the other one is called Jubal. So that's what this is about, corresponding to that. And I thought it would be important to mention that, since we've talked a little bit about mitochondrial Eve in this video. And so that's the migration route they took across the planet, generally spreading out there. So you've got the E is in sort of Mediterranean and Africa, and its twin brother goes across to somewhere like the Andaman Islands and Myanmar, and spreads out through Southeast Asia, up through Japan, Korea, and back down, circles back down into Tibet. And their brother C comes off and goes down into Australia and up through East Asia, across into the Americas and down into sort of Mexico area. And their brother F basically populates the rest of the planet. So F had a lot of children, as opposed to E and C, or ED and C. 2 main branches of ED split off. One goes to the east with C, and the other one stays in sort of Africa area. All right, so I thought that would be important to mention. There's another part to mention.
Humans invented agriculture and livestock production. With these methods, a stable food supply became possible.
So I said insert a video explaining the Adam sons of God and the Gibborim and the Hebrew calendars from Genesis 4:25 to 6:6. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any video which was remotely close enough. Probably there's one out there, but I'm not going to spend a whole year investigating, so I thought I'd just explain it myself. All right, so I need to bring up some Bible verses. So the first Bible verse that we have to look at here, the story starts with Genesis 4, and it's verse number 25. Now, the English translations all seem to indicate that this was Adam who was having children until now, rather than actually what's written in the Hebrew text as Hadean. And this is the first time we see Adam being involved in the story. And it says, and Adam again had relations with his wife, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another seed in place of Abel, since Cain killed him. But that's not actually what is being said. It's a bit misleading. And this is the problem with translations and Christianity or Islam when you go to study these things without Jewish teachers. The correct form here, as you'll see, it says actually od. Now, again would be odpam, But od means moreover or addition. There's the word, additionally. So it's not actually again, but it's moreover or in addition. Adam knew his wife and she bore a son and named him Seth in place of Abel, whom Cain had killed. So, well, you'd think, well, what's the difference? It's just another word. It's a bit of an odd word. Maybe it's ancient biblical Hebrew, therefore it's fine. It's just a little bit of awkwardness. But no, there's actually a deep meaning to this. This one word changes the entire meaning. And if you understand the Mishnah, then you'll see what's happened, because the Mishnah states that after Hadam, that's the clay, the living clay, and Chava came down to this planet and were clothed in skin. And they had their children, Cain and Abel, and then Cain nation eliminated the Abel nation, which we see that sort of evidence happening a lot in the history of the early hominids. Adam then abandoned Chava and ran off with Lilith, who was a daughter of Satan on the planet, and he fathered with her many, many demons. So Chava was sort of abandoned by Hadam. And of course, the lineage of the women, we're not talking about one person, but all the women who descend from Chava are called Chava. And so they were abused by their husband Hadam, until along came Adam. And Adam only came about 7,800 years ago. And Adam was good to her, and he gave her a child in place of Cain, in place of Abel, who Cain had killed. So chapter 5 of the book of Genesis is really about the beginning of the story of Adam, this one that the Islam refers to as Prophet Adam. It's not the same person who fell from grace. This person is rather mysterious. Adam is rather mysterious. Prophet Adam is rather mysterious. We know that he consoled Chava, and we know that he's called the Son of God. And we know that the Hebrew religion begins with this man about 7,800 years ago. But we don't know an awful lot about him. Now, it could be that he was a Neanderthal, because we found evidence that Neanderthals seem to have had a more significantly developed part of the brain which deals with religious things than Homo sapiens do. And there is also evidence that Neanderthals mixed with Homo sapiens in the Middle East. So it could be that what happened was Adam was from the Neanderthal group, and he mixed with the Homo sapiens in the Middle East, and their children could have been bigger than regular children, because when you mix two distantly related groups, they usually have bigger offspring. If they're too far distantly related, then that offspring will be sterile, as in, for example, the case of a mule. When you mix a donkey and a horse, a mule is an incredibly big and strong creature, but it's sterile. But if it's not that distantly related, then they wouldn't be sterile. And we know that since we have Neanderthal DNA in us, a small percentage, we know that the offspring of the Neanderthals and the humans wouldn't have been sterile, but probably would have been much bigger and stronger than others. So this Adam colony, who are called the sons of God, came in unto the daughters of Hadam. That's the daughters of the clay, or translated in chapter 6 as the daughters of men, and took them as wives, whoever they chose. And it says that their offspring were mighty men of old, men of renown. Now, people who like to follow non-Jewish tradition would like to say that this refers to the Nephilim. But the word Nephilim, actually, the first time we see the word Nephil in the Bible, which means fallen, is in reference to Cain, when God says to him, "Why is your face Nephil? If you do well, will you not be accepted?" So Nephil is referring to this sort of grumpy, fallen countenance. And the Nephilim can refer to the children of Cain, or it can refer to jealous people. So jealousy spread on the earth in those days, and after that, when the sons of God, that means when the Adam colony, had relations with the daughters of men, actually the translation of Hadam, the daughters of Hadam, and they bore children who became the Gibborim. The word is Gibborim. The word Gibborim appears in the book of Exodus, where Moses liberates the children of Israel from Egypt, and it says 600,000 Gibborim went with him. So Gibborim is a term which refers to heroes, but it's also the Hebrew term for the Hebrew nation, the greater Hebrew nation of Israel. So Gibborim is a specific term for us. So it says that when the Adam colony, that's the sons of God, married the daughters of Hadam, their children together were the Gibborim, the first Gibborim. So we know that Seth, for example, who Hava had instead of, in place of Abel, is the beginning of the Gibborim, is beginning of the religion of the Hebrews. So it starts with him. And that there were people who were jealous about that. The Nephilim were jealous about this. They were as their ancestor Cain had a Nephil countenance, these ones also had Nephil countenance. So they were the Nephilim. And remember that actually all of Hadam's children are all fallen angels. So it's actually accurate to refer to the Nephilim as fallen angels. So the term for Hadam's race before they were planted inside of skins and became as humans on this planet is called the Ishim. It's a rank of angels. So the Ishim rank of angels fell from grace. They're the fallen angels who came to the planet and were planted inside of skins and became the humans. So the Nephilim, being the descendants of the Ishim, remembering that the Ishim are the fallen angels, and Cain was a descendant of Hadam, those fallen angels. So Cain was the first Nephil, and Cain was also one of the Ishim. So Cain was a fallen angels, and all of their descendants are also fallen angels, Nephilim. So these daughters of Hadam are also therefore Nephilim, fallen angels. But in a sense, they're fallen angels, but the daughters of Hadam are not grumpy about marrying the sons of God, the Adam colony, who treat them better. But the word Nephilim refers here to the jealousy which was felt by those fallen angels, the males of that fallen angel race, who had a negative feeling towards the colony of Adam for this. But then Adam was probably a distant relative of the main group, being from the Neanderthal group, if not some alien visitor. But the Adam lineage, the Adam tribe or colony were the sons of God who came into the daughters of Hadam, and the already fallen angels of Hadam got Nephil about this. They got grumpy about it, so they became Nephilim. But the Gibborim are, so to a certain extent, yes, they're the offspring of fallen angels, since Hava was one of the fallen Ishim. But the colony of Adam had some technological advances or advantages over the Nephilim, which allowed them to survive. Nevertheless, the hatred towards the Hebrews has continued until this very day from the Nephilim, from the fallen ones, that Nephil attitude, which we saw from this YouTube user called Isaiah 40:22 in his message, which was on the screen at the beginning of this video. And that's one of the ways you can test to see if somebody is under the control of their fallen angel spirit ancestor of Hadam, or whether they're developing the spirit of the Son of God inside of them, since everybody should have been an ancestor from the Adam colony in them by now across the planets, since it's been a long time. Those who allow that Son of God element in them to develop will not fall into an attack on the Hebrews, but will actually enjoy learning from the Hebrews and will feel drawn to the Hebrew nation, while those who are still who are developing the darkness instead and smothering the Adam inside of themselves are going to be Nephil towards the idea that they should learn anything from these Giborim, from these Hebrews. So that's what this verse is actually about. Now it says that the Lord said his spirit would not always contend with man, for he is mortal and his days shall be 120 years. So it means that if you are, if your spirit is struggling against God, then you won't live for more than 120 years, no matter what you try to do to yourself, all the technological advances you can get and try to extend your life one way or another. You can't live actually longer than 120 years if your spirit is contending with God. But if you establish peace with God, if you come to peace and come to terms and surrender to God, then in complete surrender, then you can go beyond 120 years unless you then slip back and start struggling with God again, and then you'll die. But if you don't, then you can go past that 120 years, which is why Moses goes beyond that 120 years. So this is more little hidden gems, which I'm revealing to you now. I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash because of this, but never mind. It's all got to come out in the end. Truth will set you free. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay. So now the Hebrew calendar begins with this Adam colony. When the Adam colony was established, and it gives the dates of how long it was established before the Adam colony, the sons of God, came in unto the daughters of men, or the daughters of Hadean, and had children. And it says that this was 130 years of being established before the Seth Giborim came to be. And it gives the Seth colony, and then it gives after Seth the Enosh colony, and then the Canaan colony, and then it gives the Mahalalel colony, and then it gives the Yared colony, and then after the Yared colony, it talks about the Enoch colony and how the Enoch colony was taken up. And then after the Enoch colony, it talks about the Methuselah colony and another Lamech colony, not the same as the first Lamech from the lineage of Hadean, but this is Lamech from the lineage of the Giborim. And then from the Lamech colony comes the Noah colony and his three groups, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, who come from that as well. Now, this is not a very long time ago. If you add up all these dates, it takes you back to the beginning of the Hebrew calendar. The reason why I said about 7,800 years ago is because I used the Septuagint dates, having come from the Romaniot Minhag, with the Sabbateans come from the Romaniot Minhag, which uses the Septuagint. And the dates given in the Septuagint are slightly different. And the story goes that in Yavne, in the 2nd century AD, the time for the Messiah to come was running out. And so the Jews in Yavne in the 2nd century AD looked for alternative scriptures which had different dates, which would provide more time for the arrival of the Messiah. So they found variant texts, and they decided to compile these variant texts, which is what we see here in this Bible. This is a translation, an English translation. In all English modern translations, which don't use the Septuagint, they will have the Masoretic dates from the Jewish Sanhedrin in Yavne in the 2nd century, who chose these dates specifically to give another 2,500 years for the Messiah to arrive, because they had thought that they were running out of time, so they needed to find some other alternative. They thought themselves, these dates given in the Septuagint must be wrong because the time's nearly run out, and they were terrified of what that might mean for them. So they looked to see if they could find other sources, and they did, and they put those ones in and got rid of the Septuagint dates. So there are two different Hebrew calendars. One Hebrew calendar from Yavne, using the Masoretic texts, gives the Hebrew start of the Hebrew calendar around 3,500 BC, while the dates given in the Septuagint would place it an extra 2,250 years before that. So that's why we have got two different Hebrew calendars, and they both coming from the establishment of the Adam colony, which is the sons of God, who came in unto the daughters of Hadean. Okay, that's the lineage of Cain and his line from Lamech, which is discussed in chapter 4 of Genesis. Okay, so I think I've managed to explain that. On with the video.
Various occupational specializations arose. People began to barter and trade. To enable effective bartering, cities formed. With time, small cities developed into small city-states, with currencies, economies, laws, courts, and police. Finally, the 4 great civilizations of the world appeared along large rivers, where food productivity is higher than in other regions. Conflicts and fighting over territory occurred between civilizations. To avoid fighting, religions spread to replace governance by royal families entrenched through inheritance. What else lies ahead for human beings? In the field of science, innovative technologies will be developed at an accelerated pace. Humans will build a space base on the moon to prepare for exploration of our solar system's planets. Artificially intelligent robots will be involved in space exploration, assisting humans in their tasks. In the near future, self-replicating robots will appear and will evolve beyond humans' limits. These artificial life forms will gradually travel out into the galaxy. Moreover, new technology enabling us to go into different dimensions will be developed. Humans must become able to recognize the world beyond space and time. Eventually, the role of human beings will be finished. That will be the end of the Humanozoic Era. The expanding sun will swallow the Earth. This is the day when the planet Earth, that gave birth to life, will disappear from the universe. By that time, the Earth's life will have reached other galaxies as self-replicating artificial life in a different form.
Okay, so I hope you liked this little presentation today. It took me a while to put these videos together. I used several different ones and spliced them together, try and make the picture as clear as possible for you. Now, the interpretation that I used is just one of the possible interpretations of where to put the changeover of the days. And we can see that the change of days in God's eyes doesn't have to match the change of days as we understand them as humans. Clearly not. You know, God is not bound by this planet. He has his own way of measuring time. And there are different ways of sort of calculating that. But I put the divisions as best as I could see, and I invited people to come and suggest other possible times of when those divisions of days should come in, as long as you're not going to say that it was 6 24-hour periods based on the Earth time, modern Earth time. Yes, time does get faster as we go along. So a day today is much quicker than a day would have been thousands of years ago, and this is to do with the expansion of space-time, I understand. But you have to plot, to be precise, you have to plot it out on a graph, and you'll realize that although the length of time is if you were able to have an objective measure of time, which I don't know if we do, it would be changing. You can't say that the days beforehand would have been the same length. So you can't really use the expansion of space-time for your measure of time to say why these early days were 6 days mentioned. But there are clearly 6 periods of time. Perhaps the days of God change when the Earth and the Sun in its journey around the galaxy passes through certain clouds, certain dark nebulas, which cause ice ages. Who knows? Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it's got something to do with one galactic year might actually correspond to a day in God's eyes. So there are different ways of working it out, but the point is that the sequence of events is true. The sequence of events is true. The Bible doesn't need us to defend it. It just needs us to challenge what we think we know and to study it more deeply with the right teachers to find out what it's actually saying. And when we do that, we find that there are no contradictions with modern science. One of the biggest stumbling blocks for people who don't learn with Jewish teachers is the word himtir, used in the book of Genesis chapter 2 verse 5, where it says God had not yet caused it himtir, had not himtir on the earth. That's the way it's translated. But actually it doesn't mean God has not caused it to rain. It means that the Lord God's himtir had not been active on the earth yet, and that's the reign of God is not the reign of the sky. So the chapter 2 of the book of Genesis is saying how of God entered into the land and turned the mud into this living being. So when himtir has entered into the mud, then it becomes a living being. But people get confused and think no, it has to be a time when there was no rain. Again, you see, because they lack the cultural understanding of the context, which causes problems for them. And instead of having humility and saying, okay, let's go and learn what this means from the Hebrews and seek out the learned Hebrews rather than just going to the, I don't know, corner store and asking the local Jewish butcher, they don't have the patience to go and learn from Jewish rabbis, who are very likely going to push them away, since that is what we're supposed to do. You're supposed to push people away and deter them and prevent them from wanting to learn. So the reason I have my method is because I'm testing those people who say that they love Jesus, they love the Jews, they love Jewish culture. I'm testing to see which of those can be exposed as liars, who say things with their mouths but have a different feeling inside of their hearts. If they are as they say they are, then they've already been knocking on the door of the Jews for a very long time, and you're only supposed to turn them away 3 times before you accept them, in which case it's time to accept them. But I have a little test which I'm putting them through. So I'm accepting them with a lot of insults to make sure that those who are truly interested will not be deterred by the insults, while those who are not interested will be deterred by the insults, and the sort of mark of the beast will be manifest in them. So I'm testing to see who has the mark of the beast and who doesn't have the mark of the beast. And don't think that I've spoiled the test by explaining it just now, because those who have the mark of the beast, and the beast in this case is anti-Judaism, will never be able to hide it if they have received that mark, according to the way we test them. So we have to test them to see who has the mark and who doesn't. And those who don't, they will follow us. And those who have the mark will never follow us and might as well be exposed. So I'm carrying out this process. And the point was that you, with a little bit of knowledge of the context in the Hebrew culture, you can start to make sense of things from the Bible in ways which mean that you don't have to turn your back on knowledge and science and start believing all sorts of weird and wonderful conspiracies. Don't be misled by thinking that the religion of the beast is going to be anything other than a sort of kind of a flat Christianity where everybody is individual and has no real church. Christianity has already split into, I don't know how, God knows how many sects, 50,000 sects or something like that. And it'll continue to split and get smaller and smaller and smaller as the spirit of the Antichrist attacks the church and breaks it down to smaller and smaller and smaller sections. where every individual is worshipping their own ego and refusing to unite and come together as a proper community. But they'll be having certain general misunderstandings and ignorant beliefs in common, which will be uniting them in ignorance, such as, for example, a flat Earth, which might be impossible to imagine right now. Please God, it won't be like that, but I haven't got my hopes up high. And whatever they do, they won't be wanting to listen to the Jews. That'll be very, very clear. Anyway, so we see from the video that there are certain scientific facts which are preserved in the first few Hebrew books of beginnings. The rules of probability dictate that it is beyond mathematical reasoning to pretend that all of these points in sequence happened by mere chance. The accuracy of the sequence of events described cannot be the result of random chance. So we're left to face the reality of one or other of the following conceivable possibilities. One, that the Hebrew books preserve knowledge which mankind had once attained in a long-lost human civilization, which was at least as advanced as the present planet is, in which case we have to ask what happened to that ancient civilization, why is there no evidence of it, or if there is evidence of it, are people trying to hide that evidence from us? In other words, we start to believe in a conspiracy theory. Or number two, and this is what I think is the truth, the Hebrew books preserve knowledge which an advanced non-terrestrial intelligence taught our ancestors, either through physical demonstration or some non-physical method of instruction, or both. For example, it looks like when whoever it was describing the Garden of Eden with the 4 rivers going out from the center of Eden, it seems like they're just making a rough sort of diagram in words of something they have seen from above with their own eyes. And they are just describing it as best as they can in the language that they can refer to. And again, when they are describing the fish and the birds, or the swimmers and the flyers on the 5th day of creation, it's like they've seen it and they're just describing it in the terms that they understand. So it seems that they've been taken to certain points with physical demonstration to see with their own eyes, and then they are explaining it in their own terms. And at other times, it seems like they have a direct spiritual revelation. So 2 methods of instruction from a non-terrestrial intelligence. Now, whether you want to say that non-terrestrial intelligence is just some kind of advanced alien life, or we go as far as to say it is to do with the creator of the universe, it doesn't really matter or bother me at this point. That is a theological issue. Those people who think it's more realistic that this would be a non-terrestrial intelligence of an alien kind, that shows me that their level of theology is suitable for that kind of belief. While those who are thinking that we might be talking about an extra or non-dimensional being who teaches us through almost telepathic means, I think that that is indicating a higher level of theology. But those are discussions for another time. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to your comments. God bless you all, take care, and remember, the truth is out there.